Hey guys, this is Miss Foster. I am presenting my mini lesson plan for social studies, specifically American History 1. And the standard that I will be covering is AH1.H1, which states to apply the four interconnected dimensions of historical thinking to the American History Essential Standards in order to understand the creation and development of the United States over time. That is a mouthful. Okay, the clarifying objectives related to this standard that I kind of picked out for this specific lesson slash activity is AH1.H1.3, which says to use historical analysis and interpretation to 1. Identify issues and problems in the past, 2. Consider multiple perspectives of various people in the past, 3. Analyze cause and effect relationships and multiple causation, 4. Evaluate competing historical narratives and debates among historians, and 5. Evaluate the influence of the past on contemporary issues. So, the topic specifically of this lesson slash activity is the Declaration of Independence, and the materials needed are a highlighter, possibly a computer or tablet. Not exactly sure if we will end up needing them or not, but it's always good to have them just in case. Primary source documents, which I will provide, a pen or pencil, and blank paper. So I would introduce this topic with an attention grabber. So instead of going straight off the bat and saying, hey, we're learning about the Declaration of Independence, snooze, I mean, that is so boring. And I have found a way to compare the Declaration of Independence to a breakup letter, which some of you may have before. I think for adolescents that it's important to make material relevant and relatable and slightly entertaining, and I think that given time and consideration, we can make topics a lot more interesting than they are, especially for social studies. It's typically known to be a boring subject, and my whole point in teaching is to make social studies fun for people. So we're going to be talking about a breakup letter. I'm going to sound ridiculous and be goofy because students enjoy to see their teachers be goofy for the most part. So I'm going to go ahead and read this letter. It's thundering outside. If I were reading this in class, I would actually have my students take turns reading each paragraph rather than have them listen to me read the whole thing. But I'm going to go ahead and go through it. It's pretty short. It says, Dear KG, I'm not sure how to start this letter, but I feel we need to talk. I've been thinking about us a lot lately. Things used to be so great. I mean, everyone said it was perfect. I thought we could be together forever, but then things changed. A relationship should be give and take, but recently you've just seemed to take. I mean, you do whatever you want and you don't ask me about my feelings. I don't think you ever took into consideration my feelings when you make decisions for us. Some of the things that I would like to point out specifically that have upset me in the past few months include you always choosing which restaurants we go eat at, you always make me feel like I have to hang out with your family, and you make me feel like I'm always inferior to you. I've tried to make this work, giving you too many opportunities to change your ways, and yes, it is true that you've fixed some of your problems, but overall you just seem to focus on changing the little stuff. You haven't made any attempts to work on some big personality issues. I've been thinking about this for a while, and while I don't want to hurt you, I think it's time that we ended this. I mean, it's just not going to work. I need some time by myself to see what it's like on my own. You're always making me do things that you wanted to do and never let me have my own voice. I'm sorry things didn't work out, but I gave you time to change and you didn't. You are the one to blame for this. Sorry, but us is over. Signed, AC. Good. Okay. So hopefully we would have some volunteer students read those paragraphs one at a time so that I don't actually have to read all of it out loud. And I would also provide a printout of this so that students who like to listen and see visibly the words in front of them have that. And also it's going to be on the PowerPoint either way. Okay, so I would follow that with a few questions and kind of excuse any pauses that I might have for this. The first question I would ask is, what is the current state of the relationship between AC and KG? And I might actually call on a few people rather than just one and kind of have them discuss or say what they think their answer is. Inherently, the answer to this, though, is that AC feels like he or she is pouring from an empty glass and is over it. Okay, so we all know the analogy of pouring from an empty glass. It's a good one as far as relationships go, whether with friends or romantically or parents, teachers, whatever. Is you can't constantly give and give and give and give and not get anything in return, because eventually you are going to be burned out, dried out, whatever the right term is, and you have nothing left to give. So that is what AC was kind of communicating in this letter. And I think that's a good comparison, actually, to Great Britain and the US, because Great Britain kept taking and taking and taking America, excuse me, not the US yet. So yeah, that would be a good answer that I would expect to hear from my students. Number 2, what complaints does AC have against KG? So obviously pause. Let a few students answer. This one really just kind of takes going back to look at the letter and see what's listed out. Says that the right answer would be they never get to make decisions. AC doesn't feel like she gets to make decisions, has feelings of inferiority, spends too much time with KG's parents, etc. Okay, moving on. Number 3, what is going to happen between these two people in the future? Pause, pause, pause. And my funny self would say that they are going to be single as a Pringle until they find a better match, because AC is not happy. She is over it. He or she is over it. And yeah, that's the whole purpose of this breakup letter, is that, she or he has finally said, okay, I'm done. Moving on. All right. So to me, the Declaration of Independence is like the biggest breakup letter in American history. And I would kind of explain that to my students and say, well, the Declaration of Independence is broken down into 6 sections, all of which are listed right here: the preamble, the statement of beliefs, the list of complaints, the prior attempts at redress, the Declaration of Independence, and signatures. All right? The breakup letter is also broken down in that way. So one fun little activity that we could do as a class is actually have them go back and label the breakup letter with each of these sections. I've already gone back and done that in this slide. So you can see each paragraph is actually already labeled as one of those 6 things. Okay, we end with signatures. Then, all right, I would start to introduce the actual Declaration of Independence. So, okay, we've gotten through the breakup letter. Now we're actually talking about the history. You're awake, you've been entertained, now it's time to get down to business. We would have already been discussing the Declaration prior to this lesson, and also all of the events that took place before the drafting of it. But I did include a little bit of background info in here, which I'm not going to read out loud, just so we can refresh brains and kind of remember, okay, what's going on here? Like, why did we draft a letter? So forth. I did want to mention, though, that on these notes here, I have bolded a few things and italicized a few things, because I really want to emphasize to my students that they do not need to write every single word down. And if they want to freshen up with notes or whatever, that they can kind of focus in on what looks like it's important. Like, let's write this date down, and problems, British government, okay, done, got it. Like, I understand what that means when I look back at my notes, that type of thing. So that is good practice for them when you kind of select those few words that need to be emphasized so they can catch on to them. And all right, now we're going into our activity. So Before going into the activity, I would like to have this like little cute little presentable slide just to, make things fun. Like not, I don't want people to be like, oh, group work. Like, you know what I mean? It's going to be fun. Okay. So I would tell students that they should be prepared to be placed into groups of 4 or 6. It does need to be an even number. Depending on when it is in the school year, I would either pick the groups or I would make it based around where they're sitting. Or if it's later in the school year and I think that my students can do this quickly, then I would have them pick their own groups. But I would give them a time limit for sure because we don't want to waste any time picking groups. All right, so let's get into it. So once you have your groups of either 4 or 6, the teacher, me, would split them in half. And each of those portions or pairs would be assigned an advocacy position. One of two things. You're either going to be a patriot or a loyalist. Okay. A patriot are the people who drafted the Declaration and those who supported it. They were fed up with everything and they were ready to split from Great Britain. Loyalists had a lot more respect for, I wouldn't say respect, but they thought it would be a better idea and that America would be stronger if Great Britain and America stayed together. So to break up or to not break up, essentially. So, given that, I would give each of those advocacy positions time to be apart from each other for a little bit, so they would split up, although they're still a group at the end of the day. And I would give them each supporting documents, which I will not go over right now, but I would provide very good primary sources that can solidify their argument because the whole purpose of this is that they're going to argue either for a patriot why they should split from Great Britain or as a loyalist why they should stay. And I made sure to provide some really good sources for that so they can highlight and do a little research on the computer if they want, but I really want them to focus on these documents that I gave them to solidify their arguments. They will come back together, okay, present their position to the group entirely. The people that are listening while the other half of the group is presenting, it is important that they know that they can't talk or discuss anything until they're done, until they're all done, and that they need to take notes, really good notes. Then I would switch up on them and I would make the pairs switch their advocacy positions. So now, if you were a patriot, now you have to argue the loyalist side. And this is really good for kind of seeing multiple perspectives and being able to gather enough proper information to have a solid argument on either side. I think that's a very good skill to have. And I like this activity because it allows group work and discussion rather than just listening to a lecture. Because I could sit and lecture about the Declaration all day, but I mean, is that going to get across to anybody? Probably not. It's fun and easygoing. It works for multiple learning styles. It works on reading skills. It gives students a chance to work on their presentation skills in a very low-key setting. So they're presenting to their group, but not the entire class. Okay, and that would be the end of my activity. We would follow up with a little cool down, kind of wrap up everything that we learned in the day and discuss it and see, where we left off, see what we might need to touch up on tomorrow, etc. Okay, so that is the end of my mini lesson slash activity. Thank you so much for watching.